Well, a lot of the musician friends, obviously, that I worked with, but then you go to Clive Davis and David Geffen. Both of those people have contributed to the documentary, and then, of course, they have Cameron Crowe do the speaking over. I don't know what you call it. Yeah, the voiceover on it. Yeah. So I mean, it's just a lot of people, but a lot of my friends. I mean, when I recorded in the country back in 2019, we're working on that. This thing's been in the process since before COVID, and then COVID shut everything down. But when I was in the studio in Nashville, of course, many of my friends, from Bernie Ledden to Steve Cropper. I mean, there's just a list. J.D. Souther. It just goes on and on. Al Perkins. It's just amazing. I mean, the people that stepped up and said, "Hey, well, I've got something to say."
Yeah, and your career has been absolutely incredible in many ways. I mean, the Buffalo Springfield, of course, but let's go way back and talk about Yellow Springs, Ohio, because if we need to know where you are now, we need to know where you started from. And I believe,
well, I did.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I was going to say
no.
Your father loved music, and country music was a part of what you heard on the radio, and it caught your ear immediately. And there was something about the openness of the songs and the emotional power of those that delivered them, both the singer and the player. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think that is very accurate, and it is a style of music that kind of stuck with me. I at the time, I didn't, even when, I was in the Springfield and Poco, and we were writing, or starting a genre of music called country rock or California country rock. It just what came natural to me. There was something about it that caught my ear. I mean, Ricky Nelson, Elvis Presley, Buddy Holly, and then the rockabilly, Gene Vincent, Carl Perkins, those type of guys. It's just a type of music that I felt inspired by, and it seemed to just surface in my life. It wasn't anything consciously. It was just something that surfaced. That's kind of what I lean to.
Yeah, and it's in your blood, and it showed throughout your entire career. And where do you think you made the biggest step early on in your career to becoming a top line musician?
Well, it's a progression, Ray. And, meeting Stephen Stills and being able to play with Stephen. Stephen had a great influence on my life, especially when we first got together to start the Springfield, way back in the mid 60s. We were in this little apartment on Fountain Avenue, and I'd gone to California thinking that there was already a band, and when I got there was no band. It was just me and Stephen. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? I left a good job back at Pratt & Whitney Aircraft in Connecticut, and here I am out here now, and there's nothing happening. But there was something happening, and what was happening was that Stephen and I were learning how to sing together, how to phrase together, how to harmonize together, as we were learning all the songs that he had written for the first album. So Stephen had a big influence on me. And, when Poco started, I kind of had to pick up the baton and move on and kind of, be the leader of the band and take it from there. And it was I was still in a work in progress, so to speak, and still am for that matter. But it's been just a progress the whole way, trying to develop your craft and who you are and how you write. And I think over the years, I've really come to a place where I feel comfortable with myself. Now, people maybe don't get a chance to hear some of the music that I've done on some of my solo albums, such as Heartbeat of Love and Hand in Hand. But I really feel that, those records really speak of really how I write and what I write about and the songs I write about.
Yeah, it's important to progress as not only a musician, but as a songwriter. And as your experiences happen and you grow, your writing becomes, I think, a little bit more, it changes the perspective of it. And I think it becomes a little bit more meaningful for you. And you were on the road for a long, long time, and you realized that, is it going to be rock stardom for me, or is it going to be family? And I think you chose family, which took you in a different direction, which I think helped your writing.
Yeah, it really did, Ray. I know when I reflected on that in my album called I've Got a Reason, I wrote music was my life and finally took everything. Ain't it funny how you got it all and not a thing? Because when my family was really falling apart, that's how I looked at things. I was certainly on a mission at the time. I mean, I'd seen some of my friends go off to become, household names, Stephen Stills and Neil Young and even Jimmy Messina, Randy Meisner, and then Timothy. And it just kind of grabbed me, as to, well, boy, man, what's happened with my life? And then all of a sudden, I got in this band with J.D. Souther and Chris Hillman, and Al Perkins was in the band and led me to saving faith in Christ. And that's when I started to really look at something, more deeper in life than just my name being written, in lights at Carnegie Hall or wherever, I might be playing. That my family really became the focus of what life is really all about for me. And I certainly thank, the Lord for stepping up and revealing himself to me and becoming a believer.
It's very important because my cousin was a very, very good guitar player and went to New York and wanted to become the next Jimmy Page. And he was really, really good. But he said if he doesn't make it by a certain time, he feels that his life is going to be worthless. And unfortunately, he took his own life in the process. But he didn't see what you saw. He didn't see that it isn't about your lights and who you're playing with on the big stage and making the big money. It's about the other things in life, your family and the contributions you make to other people and in non-musical ways. And I really think that a lot of people lose that perspective and they get caught up in the drugs and alcohol and other things like that are things that just tear your life apart.
Yeah, well, certainly my life wasn't, it wasn't a perfect example on getting started and where the Lord found me. It was pretty dark to say the least. I was driven, and it was quite humbling, when Nancy said she wanted a divorce and this and that and the other, and I really had to step back and think, good golly, what have I done, and where am I going, and what really is important in life, and now after 56 years, almost 57 years of marriage together, and 4 daughters and 3 great son-in-laws and 13 grandchildren, and I realize what life is all about and the importance of it today. But I still reflect back upon it, and I mean it could have gone another way, and it would have been, I think it would have been a tragedy. I mean, there's no doubt it would have been a tragedy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, sometimes you have to go through those trials and tribulations to make you appreciate what you have right now.
Absolutely. And that's where, some of the solo music I was talking to you about, especially on Heartbeat of Love, really talks about that and reflects, on my life and just my family and just what it's really all about, that's, just where I'm at. And I'm very content and happy at this stage of my life. I guess I better be.
Yeah. Well, you're doing a lot of good for a lot of people, Richie. And I think this documentary coming out is going to bring to light a person that deserves a little bit, much more of the spotlight. Stephen Stills, of course, has had a lot of it, Neil Young, et cetera. But I think Richie Furay it's your turn for that now. And you're in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and you're in the Colorado Music Hall of Fame, and many other awards. And, of course, you work with thousands of great musicians. But your body of work stands alone, and your solo albums, Dance a Little Light, I Still Have Dreams, Season of Change, In My Father's House, I Am Sure, etc. Out of all those albums, if you had to put together a couple of songs that really embody the way you are or your character or soul, what songs would those be?
Well, certainly I've got a reason, because it really sums up a lot of what was going on. But, it's interesting you bring up that aspect, because I've actually thought about that along with David Stone, who's suggested that, think about, putting together an album with some of those songs that really reflect that. So it's something that's a work in progress as well. Now, who knows if it'll get done, but it's something at least we're thinking about. But I think I've got a reason would just sum up most of what you just said. There was something that was going on in my life, and then all of a sudden, there was that change when the Lord, when I accepted the Lord for Mal Perkins, sharing Jesus with me, and then all of a sudden here we are. Yeah.
Yep, and that's where you are right now, and and you're still making music, you're still touching life, and you're still now you're having fun. It sounds like you're really enjoying life itself, and reflecting back in a positive way. Because there are, Richie, I'm sure there are a lot of musicians out there that look back at their careers, even though they've had success, and they kind of frown upon it. They don't want to embrace it with their fans, and they don't want to go out there and share the happiness, even though some of their songs may have been really pop oriented, but you got to do that because not many people have the opportunity to have big hit records.
Absolutely. And you're exactly right, Ray. I love getting out there. I just did a couple tours, several weeks just last month. And a couple of them were just with my daughter, Jessie, and a friend, Dan Scarta. And then a couple with Firefall, but just to see the fans, that are still there to come out and hear us. And I actually, when Dan and Jesse and I did our shows back east, it was kind of interesting because I thought, you know what, we're just going to be doing, playing acoustic and doing the songs and letting the songs speak to themselves, but let's bring these people into like a living room atmosphere. And I began, in a way, just talking to the audience and taking questions from the audience as the show was going on. And it was really a cool thing. And I really enjoyed that a lot.
What have you noticed talking to fans that have followed you for a long time? Did they ever come up with some very odd but poignant questions that you haven't heard before?
Sometimes, there's some, and then, and when you make yourself vulnerable and open yourself up to those questions, you got to be ready to answer them too. I can't remember off the spot or, just what one might be at this point in time, but, there were a couple, on that, those shows that we did just several weeks ago that there was just some crazy questions, people, they come up with some very interesting ones. And I got to think, okay, now how am I going to answer this? And sometimes I have to be kind of, diplomatic and speak, just in one way or another. But it's really fun. I love the challenge. It was really great. I hope to be able to, to do that some more.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure when they bring up Neil Young, Neil is, maybe slightly challenging, a very talented musician, creative guy, and I'm sure sometimes that he could be a little bit challenging to deal with, and which I think that's part of how musicians are. They're mercurial in some ways, but Richie, you're kind of down the middle. You're able to handle either side, and no matter what happens, you're able to keep the boat going in the right direction.
Well, I certainly try to, and I cherish my friendship with Neil. I mean, we're still friends, and Stephen and Neil and I just got together for the documentary. Well, it was the first of the year now, and this is the end of the year. It seems like just yesterday, but I really cherish the friendship that I have with both those guys. It was a great time to make music and be a part of, a very significant band such as Buffalo Springfield, and we. Neil was challenging. There's no doubt about it. I mean, there were 9 people in and out of the Springfield in 2 years, and he was part of the reason for that. And that was frustrating at the time, but you know what? It's what it was what it was, and what it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, looking back, and I'm sure this will be in the documentary, does Neil look back at that and say he regrets some of the things that he may have done?
I haven't really had that in discussion with Neil. I think, maybe when he wrote that song, Buffalo Springfield Again, I think, he was reflecting a little bit back on the time. Hey, listen, we were all young. We were all kids. We didn't have great direction and management to help us along at the time. And so we were just kind of floundering along the way. And that song, Buffalo Springfield Again, may have been his reflecting back upon that time, and that's why I think maybe the second reunion maybe happened. He just wanted to get together, and unfortunately, Bruce and Dewey weren't with us at the time, but he probably reflects upon it, and I think he understands what Buffalo Springfield meant.
Yeah. Let's get back to the documentary. Through It All is what it's titled. The Life and Influence of Richie Furay, and it's going to go over your entire career, as we mentioned earlier in the interview. And if people would like to help out with they can make contributions to the documentary, correct? Yeah,
they can, because that's how it's pretty much been funded that way. and they can go to Richie Furay, RICHIEFURAY.com, and there's a place where they can follow through and find out how to contribute if they'd like. And we are planning on getting it out next year, early next year, hopefully, or at least by the spring. I'm just in the process of right now of writing one final song, that will be in the documentary at the very end that I've been challenged to do. It's amazing on some of the, donations to the documentary. It's been, well, Richie will write a song for you, and it's like, man, that's not like turning on a light switch, for me. I got to think about it and work my way through it. So I'm working on a song right now, which will be the final song contribution that I will do. I already wrote some instrumentals for it. And so if people want to donate, we'd sure appreciate it, because it'll sure help the financial aspect of getting this thing going and getting it out.
Yeah, our mutual friend Joe Hetzel has been a big part of our interaction here today. But Joe's been a part of this, and I know he's probably one of your biggest fans. And he calls my radio show every week and wants to hear another Buffalo Springfield song that you were part of. And I think that's a lot of my listeners go, Joe Hetzel's request. So a lot of people know Richie Furay and my friends from Canada through Joe. So I play a lot of your music on my radio program.
Oh, sweet, Ray. Thank you, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And Richie, if there's anything in the music world that you kind of would like to do that you haven't been able to throw yourself into, is there a certain kind of album that you'd like to make that you haven't quite made yet?
Well, it's nothing that I thought about, but like, the one that I just released, I think it was about a year ago now, that was started before COVID again, that my friend Val Gray suggested that we make, that I hadn't recorded with Val since 1979 when I did I Still Have Dreams. And we did an album called In the Country, which was fun to do country songs that had, really influenced me or been, spoke to my heart in a certain way, which I'm really proud of that particular record that came out. Ray, I don't know. We spoke about the one of maybe getting to some songs that from all of my albums, and just picking maybe 12 of them or so, to put on another album. That was one thing too. But I haven't had time to really think about that.
Yeah.
You'd say you haven't had time to think about that? Well, yeah.
You got more important things to worry about now. But the documentary hopefully will be out in about a year. And and you can go to RichieFuray.com and you can make a contribution to that. And I'm sure it's going to be great, because all the great names that we've talked about in this interview are going to be part of that. And I know that I can't wait to see it. I've watched the trailer. I've watched what you have up there so far, and it is quite amazing. And, thank you for all the great music that you've produced and will produce in the future. I just thank you for your time, and I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Ray. I appreciate being able to speak with you today, man. Thank you very much.
There's something happening here, but what it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. Battle lines being drawn. Nobody's right if everybody's wrong. Young people speaking their minds are getting so much resistance from behind. Time we stop. Hey, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down. What a field day for the heat.